My name is Gavin Colquitt. I'm the Executive Director of the Appalachian Institute for Health and Wellness. Especially pleased to be welcoming Dr. Lee from Georgia Southern University. Lee and I worked together for 12 years. I was actually on his hiring committee, and we have been very close colleagues and friends ever since then. Lee actually has a bachelor's degree in physics, a master's degree in sports biomechanics, and then a PhD in biomechanics from the University at Amherst, University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And he spent 20 years at LSU, where he attained the rank of full professor. And then, I don't know, something happened and he decided to come to Georgia and interviewed, and anyway, we were very lucky to steal him away as a research professor. So he and I have been doing a good bit of work together over the years. This past summer, we spent 3 weeks together in China, giving a series of lectures and talks at 8 universities. And he is a leading expert on the effects of physical activity and aging. He has published over 150 peer-reviewed publications and secured multiple grants, totaling over $1.5 million. So thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing Lee tell us how to stay active and as we age.
Thank you, Gavin. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Is that okay? Good. The microphone works. That's the first sign of good talk, right? The microphone works. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you all for being here. I've studied the effect of physical activity on people, on life, at different forms for the last 40 years, right? I just tell you, sometimes, I don't know how you all feel. Yesterday, I was asked to be an advisor for a campus running club. And then the student who organized that club asked me, do you run? I said, I do. He says, how long? I said, for about last 50 years. She's like, 50 years? I said, yeah, I'm that old. Right? But I'm still here. I'm still working. So today, when Dr. Colquitt asked me to come here, have this conversation with you all, we have brainstormed what would be a good topic, right? And then we are firm believers of physical activity can help us. And then from time to time when I talk about that, I got people ridicule me to say, oh, I know who and who's very active and died early, right? And then people say, oh, I know who and who never exercised, live up to like 110, right? And then those things happen. Individual cases happen. So what I'm going to present to you all today are large population-based studies, right? We're going to look at all the things we all hold together as a group. And then our life paths might be different, but as a group, our group behavior affects us dramatically, right? So that's where I'm going to anchor what I do. First of all, when we say living longer, this is a map from World Health Organization. They say, okay, the living longer thing have regional differences, right? Those areas with darker green are those areas people live much longer compared to those areas with very light colors, right? So if you're not used to what I'm doing here right now, I have my pointer on the screen. I have a screen here. So you're looking there, I'm looking here where my pointer is, right? So I see some people look at me, I'm very strange. What are you looking at? I have a screen hiding here so I can see where my pointer is, right? And then I'm very proud of my pointer. You can see this pointer can work on multiple screens, right? So essentially, this is a remote mouse for the computer. So this pointer is just the mouse pointer, right? And then, so here shows different region are different. And within different region, we all know people, male and female, lives different, right? So the map distribution, you look at more details, right? Male and female live very, very different. And speaking of that, throughout today's, for the next 30, 40 minutes, you're going to hear, I'm going to tell you explicitly, I admire you ladies. You're born in a good gender, a good sex. Whatever you do, you'll outlive our men. That's just a fact. Women live much longer, and genetically, right? And that's true all over the world. Doesn't matter where you are, right? So next time, if I have next life, I'm going to ask my parents. I'll be born as a girl, not a boy, right? Just for that reason, right? So the last two figures talking about lifespan, and here we're talking about healthy lifespan, right? And then, like Kevin said, I have worked at LSU for 14 years in Louisiana, and he pretended he did not know why did I move. The reason I moved is he and I, we both share, we love food. We love good food. And I lived in China for 30 years. I have sampled all the food I care to sample all around the country. And then I came to this country, right? And the first choice was New York. That was not a really good choice. New York, other than New York pizza, there's not much New York food, right? And then I moved to Louisiana. The Cajun food is fantastic, right? I spent 14 years there. I think I've sampled all the Cajun food I can sample, right? I gain appreciation of Cajun food. And then I come to Georgia, start sampling low country food, right? So that was my motivation anywhere I go. Now, came here, went to Sticky Boys for lunch today, and I'm still full right now, right? So healthy life, what do you eat, what do you do affects your healthy lifespan, right? So when we talk about lifespan, right now, more and more people start making the distinction between lifespan and health lifespan. And at the end of this discussion, I'm going to show some very simple graph to distinguish between the two, right? And here, when we talk about lifespan, here is the diversity of lifespan discussion. And this is people on different quartiles of income level, right? People, when we talk about mortality, so let's say you have 100 people at birth for high income and low income. At age 60, right here, the high income people still have about 90% survive. The low income people, not so much, right? So income affects people's mortality rate. And the next graph exacerbates this. We got to age 85. And you can see the high income people have about 50% survival rate. The low income people, not as much. So when we talk about longevity, there's a lot of factors. We talk about gender, and here is income level, right? There are a lot of, we're not talking about homogeneous one population. There's a lot of details in that, right? And then earlier, I was giving another talk to a group of academics, we mentioned this particular map. This is what we call a heat map. On this map, in the horizontal, this horizontal axis, it's how much physical activity you participate. On the vertical, is how much time you sit around doing nothing, right? And then green means better life, red means not so much, right? So basically this map, there's a lot, for this particular map, if you quantify this map, there's about 1,000 research goes into this map. There's a lot of research goes into this map. But the take-home message of this particular map is don't sit on your butt too much. Be active, right? But if you have to sit on your butt, that's kind of work. That's the work I do. I sit in front of my computer, just look at my computer screen and hit on the keyboard all day long, every day. That's what I do, right? But if that's what you do, you have to be able to find time for physical activity to counter that sitting time, right? So essentially, everything I say today is part of this map. All right. And then another thing I would like to mention is the way we talk about average life expectancy of different gender, different region, different country. We got put in a caveat in there. Not every statistics have the same definition, right? When we talk about some people live longer than some other people, and we may not actually compare orange to oranges. We might compare orange to apple. Give you one example. When we study longevity, let's say you study people who live 100 years old, right? And then you say their life habit, what they eat, what they do, all their life. In that kind of study, you will never, ever going to see a trusted study coming out of China. You're not going to see a trusted data study coming out of China. If you study people who live 100 years or older, the reason being, back 100 years ago, China does not keep a very good birth record. They do not have a reliable documentation who's born when, right? So you got to have reliable documentation to have that kind of study, right? So let's just say when we study those things, there's a lot of outside constraints for how can we actually do a study, perform that study with reliable data. And this is an interesting study. People compared, this is a French population, compared people's life expectancy throughout years. And those dip, the life expectancy dip right here, that's World War I. That's World War II, right? Doesn't matter your lifestyle. Doesn't matter how much money you have. War is bad. War is really bad on people, right? So what I'm saying here is we can try everything we can, but there's some factors we can't control affects our life, right? And my wife has referred to this study from time to time to my relatives. This is a very interesting study. The author of this study tracked from 1970 to about 2005. The longest lived 5 people in Japan, France, United Kingdom, and United States. Those 4 countries have kept birth record very reliably for a long time. So he collected the longest living 5 person every those years. You look at death certificate. who have died at what time. The longest living people, you look at this curve, right? In 1970, the longest living people is about 115. 2000, the longest living people on average, it's about, this is 111. This is about 115, right? And then after year 2000, that trend drop. My conclusion through this particular study is, biologically, we can all live to 115. If those people can,
Why did it drop?
we can. Well, they have concluded different reasons, but all those are speculations.
I mean, there wasn't
You know,
no epidemic?
no, there was not. There was not. Right? So my conclusion out of this, I start telling people from this, biologically, we can all live up to 115. If I didn't, I did something wrong. That's my goal. Right? I've made a few appointments with people on my 115th birthday. I'm going to see those people. I'm going to see those people, right? And to see who have did the absolute optimal lifestyle and fulfilled your biological lifespan, right? Because nowadays, you see when you look at people talking about things, somebody who died of heart attack, somebody who died of cancer, as if without cancer, without heart disease, without this, without, we couldn't live, right? And here's the biological limit, right? So 115. So look at this crowd. I think maybe another 50 years I'll see you here, all right? And then for the younger crowd, I may not be able to see you when I pass the threshold, right? And then, so what I'm saying here is there is a biological threshold for all of us. And then we all have to live, optimize where our biological threshold is, right? We cannot argue with God, right? There is a plan out there. We just have to follow that plan. Do not deteriorate from that plan. Do not deter. Do not go sideways, right? But there's fate. And fate for us is 115, right? Biologically, right? And then the next thing is, let's say we can all live to 115. How do we do it, right? And that's the discrepancy between different parts of the world. And a lot of those parts of the world, you know, they don't have a good healthcare system. They don't have good nutrition. They have a lot of war, right? And then here, we have almost the best environment we can have anywhere in the world, right? So with here, what do we do to prolong our life? And that's life expectancy. This is a little fuzzy, this figure I copied from that paper. And that paper does not give me digital graph. And so essentially, in that graph, they said in that graph is different country at the beginning, as a whole, life expectancy is low. We're talking about, you know, at age 65, how much longer you can live. So from that number, you can see from 1950, at age 65, some country you live another 5 years, some country you live another 10 years, average, no more than 15 years. That's right after World War II, right? And that number start increase. When it goes to, that's year 2017, let's say, right? Some countries have made great strides, right? Like Japan at 2015, at age 65, you can expect to live another 35 years. right? In India, not so much. In India, what we look at here, at 2015, in India, you can expect to live another 5 years, right? But everybody making progress, right? And that progress projection goes up, and then you can see different country makes different kind of progress. Society is different, community is different, right? Healthcare is different, disease control is different. And then the US is pretty much in the middle of the pack in that graph, right? We're all making progress. And then this is the important part. As you're looking for life expectancy, you have a starting point. Sometimes people looking at starting at birth, and this is from 65, right? And this is change of life expectancy, right? From birth, or you're talking about from age 65. This line is life expectancy from birth. This line is life expectancy from age 65. If you live up to 65, you can live much longer, right? A lot of people die young. So when we talk about life expectancy, there is a difference. We're talking about people born today, or we're talking about people who are 65 today. That number is very different, right? And this, you probably have seen this table before. This is how insurance company calculate our life insurance. At a certain age, how much longer are you going to live? On average. This is on Social Security website. You can see it, right? They change from time to time, right? So at age 0, the life expectancy for men is 76, for women it's 81, right? But if you're 80, the life expectancy for men is 88, for a lady it's 90, right? So the longer you live, the longer your life expectancy is. So all I'm saying here is when we talk about life expectancy, you got to understand where you start talking about it, right? And in here, one of the most striking thing on here is boys die young, a lot more than girls, right? So the differences between boys and girls at birth here is almost 5 years. But when you get to age 60, that difference shrinks to about 3 years, right? So there's hope for us. If we already survived this long, we can survive a lot more, right? All right. So for the following of a discussion, I'm going to choose a different tone. A lot of people talk about this, talking about the harm you can do to yourself. If you do this, you're going to reduce your life expectancy that much. If you do that, right, you don't eat well, you lose 3 years. You don't exercise, you lose another 2 years. If you drink alcohol, you lose another 3 months, right? I'm going to change that tone. I'm going to put a positive spin on it. If you do well, how much longer you will add to your life, right? This is some very striking statistics, right? I like to watch some good TV, right? I like to sit there and do my work, right? So the first piece of number that says, if you just reduce 3 hours of sitting time every day, okay, you can live 2 more years. This is all population studies, right? Those are all have numbers supported. It's not somebody just made up those numbers, right? And the next paragraph says, if you reducing your TV watching time to less than 2 hours, right, we can all live more, about 1.5 years, right? And then I know there's a typical retired man's image. Beer and the remote on the sofa, right? And then you combine that too, get rid of beer, get up, turn TV off, it do a lot of good, right? Well, I'm not just talking about anybody else, I'm talking about me, right? I was just talking with somebody yesterday. I just watched the whole series on Netflix, right? I didn't standing there watching it, right? So that's a lesson for us, right? Reduce sitting time, reduce TV watching time. Just get off, start doing something, it'll be good for you. And that particular good for you thing, lately, there are a lot of studies to show if you living an active lifestyle, your physical capacity is measured by how much oxygen you can take in at maximum, right? You go to doctors, sometimes they give you a stress test, right? You're walking on a treadmill to see how much oxygen you can take in, right? The more oxygen you can take in, that shows you're more physically fit. And that physical fit will translate to a lot longer healthy life. And this particular graph is a result of one of my discussion with my cardiologist. My cardiologist says, that's bullshit. My patient can't go exercise. And I showed him this study. People with cardiac stress, cardiac diseases, if they have, through exercise, have a better capacity, cardiovascular capacity, they live about the same life expectancy than the people who do not have cardiovascular diseases. But even for the people that does not have cardiovascular diseases, if they have a very low oxygen capacity, that means you walk 10 steps staircases. You can't walk anymore. That's a very good test, right? You get on the staircase. All our staircases built on every floor, you got a little platform in the middle, right? You walk up to that middle part. If you can't catch your breath, that means you have a very, very low oxygen capacity in your body, right? If you can increase that oxygen capacity in your body through exercise, through physical activity, through whatever, you can live much longer. And that holds true for both people with and without cardiovascular diseases, right? Right now, American Heart Association, along with other health organizations, they trying to list blood pressure, heart rate, and VO2, maximum oxygen capacity, as important life numbers. When you go physical every year, I'm a member of American College of Sports Medicine, we strongly suggest to have your oxygen capacity tested, right? And find a way, talk with your doctor, trying to see, doc, how can I increase my oxygen capacity, right? The word we use is called VO2, right? The volume of oxygen you can use in your body, the maximum volume of oxygen you can use in your body. And that is huge life indicator how long we can live, how much better we can live. So this is a study as one example I want to show you all, right? This study shows if you just do some light physical activity, 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes, okay? And then they followed 400,000 people for 8 years. And in that study, this is what they showed. Follow, right? Starting from people 30 years old, they followed them 8 years, 400,000 people. The result they got is if you have very low physical activity, less than 15 minutes a day, right? You increase that, you can live 2.5 years longer. Women, if you do the same kind of activity, you can live more than 3 years. So compared to people who are doing minimum physical activity, to 15 minutes a day, right? That's 2-3 years of improvement, increase of your life expectancy.
Say 50, 50, or 15?
15, 1-5, 1-5. Just go walk your dog. Take your dog out for bathroom and come back, right? Speaking of that, I talked about this number once at a university, and this little girl come after this talk, come talk to me. She's like, my dad just retired. He just sat around, beer remote, and do nothing for 2 years. And she says, I can see him physically deteriorate in 2 years so fast, right? He says, what do I do? What should I do? I said, I tell you what you do. She is a college student. I said, you go buy a dog. And you go take a dog to your dad. Says, Dad, I love this dog, but my dorm forbidden me to keep this dog in my dorm. Can you keep this dog for me until I graduate, have my own place? Every dad will do this for their daughter, right? And then she actually did. She bought a dog and gave it to dad, says, keep this dog for me. When I get my own place, I want my dog back. I saw this girl 2 years later. She actually ran up to me. She said, gosh, it's amazing. Her dad go walk a dog twice a day. Just go get the dog out there to release and coming back. She says, that difference that they make in her dad's health is so dramatic. You know, nothing but just walking the dog twice a day. You know, so those numbers don't lie. Those numbers are huge population studies from 400,000 people, right? And then if you do more, right, you not 15 minutes, you do 30 minutes, right? And you add more, right? And then you can see those numbers. Men are expected to live at least 4 years more. Women expect to live 4.5 years more if you walk 30 minutes compared to you don't physically active at all, right? That's how dramatic those physical activity. We're not talking about go out there, run, weightlifting. We know got weightlifting champion here in the back, right? But we're not talking about those strenuous exercise. We're talking about just go for a walk. We don't even talk about how fast you walk, right? Just go for a walk, right? If you walk 15 minutes a day compared to you don't do it at all, you'll live 2 or 3 years more. If you walk 30 minutes a day, you'll live, 4 or 5 years more, right? That's when we talk about how physical activity affects people's life, how physical activity prolongs people's life. I'll give you more studies, right? This is a study from the United States. This is 4,700 people, right? And this is actually a really interesting study. You know, this is followed people for 36 years. You know, those researchers, they're persistent, right? And again, this is started for the following people start at age 50, right? For people with low-level physical activity, their life expectancy is 26 years. But if you have moderate or high level physical activity, you can add another 1.5 years or 3.5 years, right? This is from age 50. We're not talking about, the last study was talking about from age 30. This is from age 50. The message here is there's never too late to start. Never too late, right? And the moderate and high physical activity, we're talking about 15, 30 minutes of walking. We're not talking about running a marathon here, all right? So I think this is the same slide. I don't know what happened. So this is a Sweden study. right? The essential message is the same, right? And they follow those people, 2,000 people, for 35 years, get similar message out. And there's, I think there's Sweden study, there's a Polish study, there's US study, there's Taiwan study. They start following people 30, 40 years, right? They got exactly the same conclusion. So what I'm saying here is, doesn't matter when you start, doesn't really matter where you live, which country, which region in the world, where you are, be physically active, you can live longer, right? The effect may be different, 1.5 years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but the positive effect is there. It'd be better, right? The problem I need to point out in those studies, those are what we call cohort studies. They follow people 30, 40 years, right? There is a question people ask, a legit question. The people who are physically active, they were just more healthier. That's why at the very beginning, they're physically more active, right? For the weaker people, for the people who are not as healthy, they may not work physically active as much, right? So it's not because they physically active, it's because they were healthier to start with. That's why they live longer, right? That's true. That's true. That particular question is a true question. We have an epidemiologist here to actually show a lot more details to that question. The problem with this kind of studies, when you select a group of people and you follow them, those people are different from the get-go, right? And so what we need to do is do intervention studies. And I talked to Dr. Colquitt, our executive director here. We're going to start a study today. Okay, we're going to divide this room from here. People on the left, stay put. He will provide food, nutrition, everything for the next 30 years. Just don't move. And people over here, we're going to provide you gym and food and other things, right? And it will come back 30 years. We can't do that, right? Even we have the resource, we can't do it. So those types of studies, there are better ideas of conducting studies. We just can't do it. We can't help people here for 30 years doing nothing, right? So we have those flaws. We want you to know it does happen. However, there are intervention studies. You cannot do intervention study for 40 years. That's not feasible, right? But there are intervention studies show it actually beneficial. You have people active compared to people not being intervened, not active. And this is a case for breast cancer survivors, right? So what I was trying to say here is, even you have a serious disease as cancer, you survive the cancer, physically active or not, still make a huge difference, right? I have anecdotal study. When Gavin, both of us working at Georgia Southern, we have a coworker. She had breast cancer. She had an operation, and we helped her after her operation, and for 6 months, we worked with her, physically active for 6 months. Other than in the operating room, she did not miss a day of work. She was at times, she was 45, right? So for breast cancer survivors, after the operation, 6 months, not missing a day of work. That's pretty impressive, you know. Throughout her chemo, all that, you know. All right, that's talking about prolonged life. Now we're talking about what's health. I started talking about lifespan and the health span, right? And health, by the definition of World Health Organization, is not just disease-free. it has to be physically, mentally, psychologically healthy. Right? That's health. Within that, I want everybody, if you don't remember anything I talked about today, I want you to remember this particular picture. Okay? In this picture, when we talk about the effect of physical activity, we talk about physical activity prolong your life. Right? Let's say right now, in a particular community, the life expectancy is 75. That's 75. And then you have disease setting up at age 65. And in 10 years, you live in disease state. Right? We all know somebody, or we all live that life, just the pills get more and more. Right? Sometimes your pills more than your food. Right? You got a whole fist of pills every meal. And after the pills, you don't want meals. Right? And then as year goes by, those pills just getting more and more. Right? So the difference between health span and the lifespan is when we can live an independent life. How long can we live an independent life? And then after that, how long we can live more. Right? That's the difference. Here is a very sad statistics I can report to you when I was in Louisiana. The state of Louisiana have the shortest life expectancy in the country. The shortest. Another statistics with that, the state of Louisiana have the longest nursing home stay in the country as population. That's a very sad statistics, right? They don't live as long, but they spend a lot of time in nursing homes. We want to avoid that. So this graph, what we try to show here is, as we prolong life, right? Let's say we go from 75 to 80 years life expectancy. We do not want the disease setting in the same as 65. What we want to do is we want to reduce the amount of time we live in the disease stage, right? Not only we don't live 10 years with disease, we live 5 years with disease. We live 2 years with disease, right? The less years we spend with pills on the bed, bedridden, in the hospital, the less, the better, right? In this country right now, the average years after people lost independence, people can live is 4 years. For the people who are actually physically active, very healthy, that number, it's 6 months. 6 months. 6 months. On average, before people pass away in this country, you lost your independent living capacity for 4 years, right? That's on average. But people who are physically active, doesn't really matter how long you live, that number is 6 months. For me, that's very striking numbers, right? We would like to live our best life if we're living, right? So 4 years of lost independence compared to 6 months of loss of independence, right? And I have a few acquaintances who's right now actually living that kind of life, right? Their spouse, their neighbors, their brothers, sisters, within the family, some people were physically active, some people were physically not active, and then you will see this more and more, once again, the people who are more physically active taking care of those people who are not physically as active. You know? Well, even I lost the capacity to help others, I still don't want to be a burden to others. Right? So we want to prolong not only our life, we want to prolong our healthy lifespan. Right? So, categorically, a carefully planned healthy lifestyle can help people prolong their healthy lifespan. You can live longer within your health, with good health, right? This is an interesting study. This actually turned out as one of my discussions with a buddy of mine. To using myself to prove physically active can actually help you, I started running at age 55. While my body says, you're crazy. You're age 55, you start running. I ran a marathon when I was 57, right? My body says, you're just crazy SOB. You know, you're going to wear off your knee, you're going to wear off your hip, you know. You're going to develop all sorts of problems, your knee pain, right? And then I'm looking for this data. This is a study followed a large community in Pennsylvania. They look at people who being, physically independent compared to this is a running group data. This is in the same community, the group people who are not running, right? And this is the disability score. They follow those people for 20 years, right? The running group people developed much less disability compared to the group not running. Although people say you're wrong, you got a bad knee, runner's knee, right? I can tell you, runner's knee does not exist. I've been running for the last almost 9.5 years, for 10 years, almost 10 years, right? And the guy who advised me not running, he already have a knee replacement. We're the same age, right? And my knee is still working pretty well, right? So I talked to any doctor who would listen to me. Human parts are not machinery, not furnitures. You don't wear them out. As you use them, you're stimulating growth. Right? Our body are able to adapt. You just have to give the body proper stimulation. Right? So, this is a model developed under the advising of World Health Organization. So this, on this line, this is basically how old we are. And then we look at fitness on this line. And what this model we try to develop here is at what time we say we're disabled. So that line is what we call disability threshold. Okay? The people who developed this model using function capacity, respiration, muscle strength, cardiovascular, to develop this disability threshold. And then they have a way of calculating this, right? Here's the model. Throughout our lifetime, at the very beginning, our physical fitness improved. From newborn, 5 years old, 10 years old, I don't know where it peaked. For me, it peaked probably at 23, right? I keep telling my students, when I was in college, I can do 3 all-nighters, and nothing happens to a class, homeworks, and nothing, right? I behave as if I did not take any all-nighters. And that reduced to 2 at age 22, reduced to 1 at age 23, and right now, I can't miss even a minute of sleep. If I go to bed late, that's a problem, right? And then, as your fitness capacity improves to a peak, and then you're going to inevitably decrease. You're going to go downhill. From that downhill, at some time, you're going to cross that disability threshold. Some people cross that earlier, somebody crosses it later, right? You're going to lose your independence. So it's a matter of how far you build up yourself and how fast you decline, right? And in there, I put in a few different lines. Those lines essentially indicating as we build ourselves up, the higher we build ourselves up, the longer we can fall, right? And then, so the early years, those early years is where, for intervention, Dr. Holquist worked with a lot of school kids. That's where we build ourselves up, right? Whatever you do at early years, you build yourself up. Because the higher you go, the longer you can fall. And then after you peaked, some people fall at different rate. Lifestyles, environments, whatever affects how fast you fall. So our physical activity, the goal of physical activity in that part is to slow down the deterioration. Right? Doesn't matter where you are, if you fall slower, you can fall a longer time. Right? You may not start very good, but if you deteriorate very, very slowly, you have a long way to go across the threshold, the disability threshold. Right? So in those years, our goal is to maintain our capacity and reduce the decline. Well, when you get to the later part, you continue intervention like where I am, right? I'm pretty close to the disability threshold. I just want to stay off it, stay afloat, stay above it as long as I can. So you maintain your physical capacity. You know, it becomes a maintenance, right? An old car, you just have to keep it running, right? And then when you get to the point, you cross this disability threshold, right? We cannot live independently. There's going to be a day we're going to depend on other people. However, even in those days, physical activity can help you live a better life. Even you have to depend on other people, right? And that might be reversed. I was thinking about telling this story or not. Already I'm pushing on time, but I'm going to tell the story. We have a physical activity intervention program when I was at LSU. 3 months into the program, I got 4 people standing in front of my office door. And those 4 pretty big people, and they're in their 50s, I think, or 60s, right? And then I was like, I'm in trouble. What happened? You know, those people look at me like, I said, can I help you? They says, are you Dr. Lee? I said, yeah. It says, we want to ask you something. I said, okay. It says, my mom is in your intervention program. Our request is, whatever you do, don't ever let her quit the program. I said, why? It says, Mom liked her independence. Mom still lives in Mom's house. And she insists she can live independently, but we know she can't. So the 4 kids and their spouses, 8 of them, take turns to go check on Mom every day. Help her cleaning, help her cooking, do whatever chores they need to do. Right? Give you one indication why Mom cannot live by herself. She has neuropathy.
She has what?
Neuropathy? She has neuropathy. She cannot wash her own hair. If you stand in the shower, close her eyes, she falls. Right? For all you know, people who have neuropathy, you depend on your vision to keep your balance. If you close your eyes, you fall. You can't wash your hair, open your eyes, right? Because that's a dilemma. right? So she cannot live independently. She can't even wash her own hair. She can't take a bath, right? And so the kids have to come after 3 months in our program. They don't have to come anymore. They have the confidence mom can take care of herself. We have reversed that dependency. So what we do here not only affects ourselves, affects our family, affects our community, right? So whatever we can do to maintain our independence, to maintain our physical fitness, it's not just us, affects all people around us, right? So when we talk about lifespan, quality of life, we're not talking about just ourselves. We talk about people around us in the community. So that particular concept, there is a study out of Australia. They followed 40,000 women, right? And here is their criteria. They have 3 groups: young, middle-aged, older group. Okay? The young groups start at 18 to 23. The middle-aged group start at 45, 50. The older group start at 70, 75, and they follow those people. They followed for 15 years. Right? Here's what they find. Based on the model we're just talking about. Okay? So they have 3 groups. The younger group, in those years they followed, 15 years, they deteriorate very little, on average. Very little. The middle-aged group deteriorate a little bit more. The older group started low, deteriorate fast. So that's just fact of life, right? Younger people do not deteriorate as much. Older people deteriorate fast. But here is things get more interesting. If you divide a group into healthier or not as healthy group, fitter or not as fit group, right? You know, the younger group, the fittest people actually deteriorate the most. The least fit people actually improved. In statistics, we call it regression to the mean, right? That's all happens in population studies. The middle group, that's the group reflects the mean, the average. So we're not the average, right? And then you look at the middle-aged people. The first 3 group deteriorates about the same rate. Even the first 4 groups. The people who are least fit stayed below that disability threshold. They start below the threshold, they stay below the threshold. And here is the oldest group within that. The fittest people reach their disability threshold at about 92. The least fit people stayed underneath, the 2 groups stayed underneath the disability threshold. Right? So, although on average we all deteriorate, if you start better, you're better off. However, for the older group, okay, the deteriorating rate is all about the same without any intervention. They all deteriorate at the same rate. That shows if you can keep yourself at a better state, we all deteriorate, right? You look much fitter than me. So 5 years later, you're probably better off than me, right? We're all going to deteriorate at the same rate. Here is physical activity. How much physical activity affects this, right? This is the number, that graph I just showed, I want you all to remember. About lifespan and health span, right? And this is the number I want you all to remember as you leave here today. In the older group, I'm going to read this. In the older group, the average age at which disability threshold was reached. For the people with higher physical activity, they reach their disability threshold at 84. The people who moderately work a little more, they reach disability threshold at age 80 and a half. The people who work out very little, they reach the disability threshold on average at 78. The people who do not physical activity at all, they reach their disability threshold at age 70. Between age 70 and age 84, that's where I want to be. 14 years. People with high level of physical activity compared to who people physically inactive at all, right? Not doing anything. There's 14 years of independent living. That's where I want to be. That's what I want to do. I want to drill this number into everybody's mind. 14 years of difference of independent living, right? That's what motivated me to be physically active day in, day out. That's what motivated me to get up for a morning run, do my physical activity. That's what motivated me to walk around here to talk about this rather than sit in the chair. This is my physical activity today, for the day. You know, I keep telling everybody, when I give a lecture, I want to walk around. I don't want to sit there. That's not good for me. You know? So that 14 years, that's the number. In addition to that graph, that's the number I want everybody to remember walking out here today. So the conclusion, the deterioration is not a linear line, and you can do something for it. And if the more you do, the better off you will be, right? And then this picture is a picture circulating around the internet a lot, right? At age 74, you can have different type of quality of life, right? One can go to the gym, the other one can sit on the sick bed and looking out the window. I want to be the one in the gym, not the one sitting on the bed looking out the window, right? So that's life and the quality of life. That's lifespan and health span, all right? So that's why I want to talk about this. If you can't go to the gym, this is what I want you to do, right? We all get older. You don't have to be old. That's the mentality, right? I don't know about you. This is what the question I asked about me today. Thank you.
All right, we do have some time for some questions. I'm going to see if we can get this microphone to work in conjunction.
Well, I think I can hear, ma'am.
As you talk about exercise as just walking or running or whatever, but don't you mean whole body exercise? Is
Well,
that important?
yes, ma'am. And that's a very good question. When we talk about exercise, what type of exercise are we talking about, right? Here is the distinction we have to make. If we talk about the people who never done anything, be a remote in the chair all day long, anything is good. Just get out to walk the dog, right? But if you talk about what exercise will be better, will be optimal, that actually is depending on who you are, where you are, what do you do, right? Everybody have their own optimal, best way to work out. In our field, you know, I think Dr. Colquitt and all those people who study physical activity will agree with me, the physical activity you can stick with is the best, right? I can tell you weightlifting is the best, but you hate weightlifting, right? No, I'm just saying, right? So whatever you can stick with, that's the best physical activity for you.
Okay, thank you.
You know? And then we don't want to tell people, oh, yoga is the best. You know, I do yoga 2 hours a day, but he hates yoga. It's like, that's not for me. You better go to yoga, I'll wait in car, right? Right? I have this. I have a Tai Chi group. I've been working with this group of people for the last 8 years. I actually had a guy sat out there waiting for his wife. He's like, Tai Chi is not for me. I drove her here. She can do her Tai Chi, and we go back home together. And he would have sat in the car reading a book. I was like, why don't you just come join us? It's like, yeah, that's fine. That's not for me. You know, so whatever is good for you, whatever you can stick with, that's the best you can do. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
If, just so everybody can hear, I'm going to pass the microphone.
I'm interested in the effect of food, the quality of food, greens, organic food, and how that also plays into this.
I have to disclose I'm not a food expert. I'm not a nutrition expert. So from what I know, okay, one basic thing is the best is your energy balance. Right? You don't eat more than what you need, right? For me, I feel like, I don't know about you, the food I need, it's reduced a lot over the years. I can't eat as the same way I eat when I was in college, right? And then I have a pair of pants. It's 2 sizes smaller than this. It's on the shelf, in the house, in the closet for the last 5 years. I really want to fit into that pair of pants again. It's hard. It's really hard, right? However, okay, here's what my understanding about food and nutrition. First of all, it has to be balanced, right? Your proteins, your carb, your fiber has to be balanced. 3 square meals a day. I don't believe all the fat out there. You know, people do no fat, no meat, no grain. You know, I believe a balanced meal. If you get our FDA's website, they actually have U.S. recommendation, government recommendation for nutrition, right? And then the best way they do it is they says the first thing you do to make sure you don't use large size plate in the house, use small size plate. 8-inch plate. Don't ever use 10-inch, 12-inch plate. Use 8-inch plate. And every time you look at your plate, you have a third of a protein, you have a third of carb, a third of fiber. Right? That's the kind of balance we're talking about. Right? And I don't believe that those fad, like intermittent fasting, right? You eat a day and you fast a day, or you eat 8 hours and fast 16 hours. How much food you get in is how much food you get in, right? So I still believe 3 square meals a day, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then in terms of what type of food is best for you, my answer is mixed. There is a study out of FDA website you can get. They says if you can eat 35 different things a day, that's a good day. 35 things a day. So for breakfast, right, you got multi-grain bread. That's 9 different grains in them. You got an egg, right? You got milk. That's 11 different type of food, right? For lunch, you got a sandwich, right? Well, you got a grain in that, and then you put different meat in the sandwich, different vegetables in the sandwich, right? You can put 5, 6 different kind of things in that, right? So that's what they're talking about. Do not fist on one fixed type of food, day in, day out. Keep the variety, right? And then that's I think what I believe is keep to the basic. Do not make it too fancy. You know, we got intermittent fasting, we got this Mediterranean diet. That's too complicated. Just stick with the basic. 8-inch plate.
I 5 times a week, I would reduce my chance of cancer returning by 85%.
That's good
Now,
advice.
That's not a reason to exercise. I don't know.
That's very good advice. You got a good doctor,
And that
ma'am.
was a doctor.
Yep, right here.
Okay, I am an odd duck in several different departments, as those of you who know me know.
Yes.
Especially with what you're talking about. So, what if you are physically not really able to exercise? I have scoliosis. I've got to use the walker. My center of gravity is like at 2 o'clock. If I try to stand up and walk, I will fall down. And there's a finite amount of time that I can stand up under any circumstances without my lower back screaming at me. So I've been sitting here going, gee, that's nice. Doesn't apply to me, but go for it.
Well, ma'am, if I may, I would like to make a suggestion. You find a fitness expert, not say, I can't do. Change that phrase, what can I do? I think a fitness instructor will be able to find things you can do. I have confidence. Talk to Dr. Cochran. He will find you a fitness instructor, will make a plan for you for the things you can do, right? There's always things we can do. If you can't stand and walk, you can sit there and exercise. You can't exercise on land.
I've considered getting one of those little pedal things,
Exactly,
maybe
exactly.
when I'm sitting at the computer, you know.
Exactly, right? If you can't work on land, you can work in water.
Oh, barf.
Right? So whatever works for you, if you look, other people can help you look. I'm pretty sure you can find something you can do and you might actually enjoy to do. You know, just we have to change the question. You know, like I can't do anything. No, there's something out there. Let me find it.
Yeah, there's a certification called Inclusive Fitness Certification that the American College of Sports Medicine offers. So there is a specialty group that you can really have to help you connect more.
I have a good friend who's she's 85. She doesn't work out or take walks or anything like that, and she's excellent shape. And she's on a whole bunch of boards of directors of organizations that help other people. And so she has a incredible feeling about helping others and very positive attitude. And so she's not physically active, but she looks in real good physical shape. Does mental attitude have something to do with this?
Of course, a positive mental attitude it's help a lot. But let me tell you, when you say she does nothing, she doesn't do physical activity. From what you just said, your statement, she does a lot. If you go to 5 board meetings a day, you have to get up, you have to walk, right? You can't just sit there waiting for people to come to you, right? I have one example, a similar example as what you have. There's a lady in Louisiana. When I met her, she was 84. She was organizing senior Olympics for the state, right? She says, I don't do any sports, but I organize physical, senior Olympics for the state. You all can imagine to organize a senior Olympics for the state, how much you have to do, There's a lot you have to do, and you don't feel like you're exercising, but you're all over the place. You're actually doing a lot, right? Here is a caveat for that story. This lady, she's mental acuity is so good. Her physical condition is so good. The one thing she enjoys to do the most, from time to time, at night she walks into a bar. LSU, that's college town, right? There's a lot of bars with students playing pool there. She's about that tiny. She's tiny, she's little, right? She walks in the bar, she plays innocent. She's like, what are you doing? And then the students say, oh, we're playing pool. It's like, looks like fun. Can I play? And the student said, well, we play for money. She's like, how much? And they says, how about $5 a game? She's like, can you teach me? By the end of the night, she cleaned them out. So once in a while, that's what kind of, when she gets really bored, she just walks into the bar, do that. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
When you were talking about reducing TV,
Mm-hmm.
I have to work on reducing that.
Well, that study is when before we have smartphones, before smartphone becomes, we look at the smartphone, we look at the small screens a lot nowadays, right? And then that have a huge effects on our physical activity, level of physical activities, right? And my own way to handle that is I listen to audiobooks when I go for a walk and when I go for a run. I turn it on, I put it, earphones on, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and the one, if anybody needs a recommendation, the one I like to listen the most is Freakonomics out of NPR. That show is so hilarious, it's so good. I walk around and just listen to them talking, and then I had my phone, but I'm not really watching, and I'm listening, right? So that's my way. I can't leave my phone either.
I was a caregiver, and I went to the classes, and I saw that everybody that came in there had to learn to breathe. Because I bet you 95% of the people here don't know how to correctly breathe. They do the shallow breathing, and they should all learn how to breathe. It doesn't come up because you don't think about it.
Yeah, thank you, sir. There are a lot of details on how to be physically active, how to improve your fitness, and breathing is a very important aspect of that. And then I'm not sure what your takes on COVID, on the pandemic, right? The pandemic is essentially a lung disease, right? And then so people who have a better breathing technique, you can have better fend off the effect of COVID. And I've seen that from time to time, right? So breathing technique is really important for people with shallow breathing. For you, anybody here do not know the significance of what he's talking about, right? We need a lot of fresh air into our lungs. And in shallow breathing, our lung is about the size of a milk jug, right? 3-4 gallons. That's how big our lung, how much air our lung can hold. Our daily breathing, it takes about 1/5 of that space. So what that meant is, if you have shallow breathing, you have about that much. Picture your milk jug. You have not that much dead air in your lung. You walk around with it, day in, day out. A deeper breathing will have more fresh air, less dead air in your lung, right? And then not only that, a deeper breathing helps you to exercise the muscles that help you breathe. We all know our lung does not have muscle. You have to have open your chest, open your stomach. You have to passively expand the capacity of your lung cavity to actually breathing. So deeper breathing, not only you have more fresh air into your lung, you actually exercise all the muscles around it, right? So that is a very good point. And then if nothing you can do, you can practice breathing, right? That's one thing, In my Tai Chi practice with our group, we talk about breathing all the time.
Well, that was, I used to ski, and the technique we were told to basically was to get rid of the carbon dioxide.
Right.
Was that you inhale to the count of 2, exhale to the count of 4.
Okay. Right.
And that's what I do.
Well, I have more extreme examples than that. A few years ago, I was foolish enough, I can go climb Mount Rainier. You know that mountain outside Oregon? You know, you look around, it's majestic out there. Every time I drive around that mountain, I was like, I have to go climb that mountain, right? So I signed up with a tour group, and then I went. And then, of course, after the first 20 minutes, I can't breathe, right? So the tour guide taught me how to breathe. When you can't breathe in that altitude, in that kind of steep hiking, your muscles start burning because you don't have enough oxygen in the muscles. So what he taught me is, in addition to exhale more, he's like, when you're at the end of your exhale, you imagine you're going to blow a candle. You have your birthday candle right in front of you. So you go, when you feel like you have nothing to go out, you blow that candle, right? So that will empty your lung a lot more, so you get more fresh air coming in, more oxygen coming in. That's actually amazing. I did that for 5 minutes. My muscle is not burning anymore. I got enough oxygen into my system, right? It really helped, right? So, ma'am, thank you, sir. That's a really good point.
Any more questions? We have time for a few more.
It seems like a lot of the research, not just here but other places, ends about 85 or something. Are people beginning to study folks in their 90s who are doing well?
There are a lot of studies right now up to, I think I have seen a few studies up to 100, right? One of the reasons I did not include in that, I'm not sure how many 90 years old, 100 years old will be here in this part of discussion, right? So there are. But I don't know many intervention type of studies in that age group. Most are just observational group, trying to see, okay, you live this long, what did you do to help you to live to get this point, right? And I'm not sure if you know the blue zone studies, right? So the blue zone studies is basically follow the people around the world in the north hemisphere, around the latitude of 30, 35. There's a few different regions around the world. In that zone, people live very, very long, right? And then there are researchers trying to figure out what enabled them to live that long, right? But I don't know if there's any intervention study for that age group. How do we intervene to help them to live better?
I would think just to continue with the exercising.
Yes. Well, like I said in that little chart, oops. In that model, at different age, we have a different purpose. With different purpose, we have different modalities, right? So when you, in a different part of your life, you have a different purpose of physical activity, and different purpose, well, called for different type of physical activity, right? If you want to improve or you want to maintain, right?
Hi there, that's loud. This might be a good one to end on. Thanks for being here, everybody. And as most of you know, we have some more lectures coming up Fridays in the next few months. One on November 15th by Dr. Kim McCullough is titled Cognitive Fitness. And as I'm sure she will talk about in that talk, if some of you have heard this already, to maintain cognitive reserve, she talks about there's a triple crown of what you could do. And one is physical activity, and even better if it's physical activity that involves social activity, and even better if it's physical activity and social activity that includes something that challenges your way of thinking. That's the triple crown, and that's how you're going to build cognitive reserve. So as Dr. Lee has been talking about with increasing physical activity, you might as well add on those other two components to help with cognitive reserve. So activities such as Tai Chi, where you're social, you're learning something new, and it's physical activity, or playing pickleball, where there is,
Pickleball.
again, very social. It's challenging you because keeping score is the very hardest part of that game. And it's physical activity, you get very winded, or social dance, right, Amy? Very social, very challenging because you're learning new steps, and it's physical activity. So think in terms of the triple crown or the trifecta of cognitive reserve, and there you have it.
Can you repeat those?
So physical activity combined, physical activity combined with social activity, combined with brain activity or challenging your brain.
I have one more thing. I do
Yes, sir.
splits and flits, and I do it badly. There's nothing wrong with exercising and doing it badly.
No,
And people think they gotta be perfect, and
no, you don't have to be perfect.
if you're doing it is good. Doing it better is good, but just doing it is all right.
It's much better than not doing it. I agree with you, sir.
Great presentation, thank you very much. So I have a good question probably for the end of this. I'm just curious what your suggestions would be for the community, or even on a bigger scale, as far as like what we could do, because this is, I mean, we know this education, the awareness, how important it is to take care of ourselves, but still we lack the enthusiasm from people generally to take care of themselves. So do you think that, like, how can we get the message, not the message, I mean, again, it's there, but how can we get more people taking care of themselves? You know, like, what could we do in the workplace? I mean, should we make changes, you know, to a societal level to say, hey, we, you know, let's do this, and then, you know, we're gonna benefit in a bigger way.
Well, sir, that's about $1 million question. Well, actually, $100 million question, right? We all think about that. We all know physical activity is good for us, but there's a large group of people in our community that does not do anything. Don't do it, right? How do we motivate everybody? You know, I think all we can do is one person at a time, right? And then
Husbands, do you know how to motivate a husband?
buy a dog.
All right.
Buy a dog. You know, yeah, one person at a time. I know you're talking about larger scale things, right? But we have to start from small, one person at a time. And just for all of us, like what you said, ma'am, to motivate the person next to you, right? Whoever next to you, whoever you can reach to, whoever you can motivate, whoever you can convince them, right? So that's why when I was answering that question, you know, what is the best exercise? You got the people you want to motivate. You got to find what tickle them, right? What activity they can do, right? You don't force them to do the things they don't really hate, they don't really want to do, right? So I think one of the key is to find what people wants to do, right? And then build from there. And then that's a very good point over there, you know, physical activity and mental acuity, you know, and the involvement of things, right? Let's say people say, I'm not an exercise type. I just don't do exercise, right? And then we say, okay, let's go help somebody. You know, we got Habitat for Humanity. They're building a house, right? Let's go help them. You cannot climb a ladder, but you can put the ladder there to help them, right? So be part of the community, doing something, doing whatever you can to be part of the community. That's, you know, it may not look like a physical activity, but you're there doing something, right? And help your neighbor with their groceries. You know, anything you can do, whatever tickles them, I think that will be the thing. That's where I will start. On a larger scale, Gavin and I, we work at universities, so we work in the education system, right? And then one of the things in Gavin's book, we're talking about have kids in school build the habit of physical activity, right? When you have the habit. So in the past, when I was in China, our physical activity class have very hard criteria You have to run this much, this fast. You have to do so many pull-ups, right? That's not the things you do as lifestyle, right? You teach people how to play pickleball. You teach people how to play tennis. You teach people the kind of skill they will enjoy throughout their life, right? That's something, or as physical educators, we're all working on. How can we teach our kids, build up the lifelong habit of some kind of physical activity? Sorry I have to disappoint you. I don't really have the magical pills for your question.
Well, we are going to wrap things up today. Dr. Lee, if you have some other individual questions, feel free to stop by and ask. Our next Aging Academy is going to be October 4th at 3 p.m. Mayor Cheryl is confirming. October 4th at 3 p.m. All right, so thank you very much. Let's give Dr. Lee another round of applause.
Thank you.